Meet BMW's mighty M8, and by virtue of its name itself, it's the mightiest of all the M's. But is it really the mightiest? And more importantly, I'm going to tell you 5 things that you cannot do in the M8. The first thing that you can't do in an M8 is keep a straight face. Because when you step inside, especially if it's after dark, it'll look like your childhood fantasy of a futuristic car coming to life. The way the lights glitter around the cabin, it almost has a cockpit-like feel. Then when you look around the cabin, you'll find there are these small little details like the engine start-stop button in red and the M paddles also finished in red for the special modes that you can configure. And then when it comes to life, it does so with a certain presence, which you will, yes, it's hard to keep a straight face for that. It's very hard. Yes. Twin turbo and all, but it sounds good. And of course, because it's an M car, when you start off, you'll set it to, the sportier settings. And when you do, you'll find that the ride feels quite firm at low speed and you'll hear and feel every one of those cat's eyes on the road. And that's not all. When you're driving over the tarmac, you can feel the tires digging in, chucking on bits of gravel into the wheel wells, blinking around. So if you wanted to be a race car driver, well, you can live that right here, right now. But being a race car driver is serious business. I'm not smiling. That's a grimace. The other thing you can't do in the M8 is stop thinking about rockets. Not the Diwali variety, the outer space variety. When you put your foot down, the M8 accelerates hard. There's immense thrust on offer. But you get the feeling that the engine's kind of holding back. Almost like a rocket that's trying to break free from Earth's gravity and atmosphere. And once it does, when the engine dumps all 750 Newton meters, 600 horsepower, lift off! It flies! Again, of course, there's the all-wheel drive helping things along by putting the power down so hard but yet so cleanly. In our tests, we couldn't activate launch control, and despite that, the M8 went from 0 to 100 in 4 seconds. Woohoo! So this is like flying your own rocket ship, only you don't need to be very skilled to do it. I don't mind. The other thing you can't do in the M8 is get the thought of neck exercises out of your head. Oh, because this thing turns, like really turns. Yes, the steering is quick, really quick, that you do only half your steering inputs and it's gone, already gone. So you have to recalibrate, and of course you've got the modes to change the steering responsiveness. But that aside, you put this in Sport Plus mode and it just hunkers down, it tightens up, it makes that 2-ton curb weight seem like just a number. But of course that is helped along by the fact that it has an all-wheel drive system. And that, although it's primarily a rear-wheel drive bias system, it can send torque between the front and the rear axle, inside wheels, outside wheels. In a flash, you really don't feel it working. That means it hooks up around corners and lets you dig in, and yeah. What you can't do in an M8 is be unsentimental. You end up thinking of things like, what does M stand for? What does it mean to me? Where is M going? And that's because the M cars from BMW were always the ones that sat on the driver's side, the ones that went to the nth degree to find the right balance, the precision, the intimacy, so that you could then, and only then, would you be able to exploit the absolute beauty and joy that it had to offer. But now, as we can see with the M8, if you want to have fun with it, you just got to shake hands. And at the crux of that is the all-wheel drive system, which, well, on the one hand, numbs the steering and makes the relationship feel a bit distant, but on the other hand, it just makes it so much easier to just have fun. Having said that, this will still be a very emotional relationship to have. But don't feel grumbly about the all-wheel drive system, because if you want, you could turn it off and just have this as a rear-wheel drive machine. In which case, this is effectively a muscle car, and you can unlock some muscle car magic. And talking about muscle cars, the fifth thing that you can't do when in the M8 is stop thinking back to the Mustang. Now that is a GT that felt just so right for India. You could really travel with it. And surprisingly, this hardcore M also gives you a similar vibe. The suspension in comfort mode soaks up our road conditions with a surprising amount of grace. For a car that could be at home on a racetrack, to just tackle this is impressive. So if you wanted to do a stint between Bombay and Bangalore in the M8, you could. You really could.
And the cabin is super quiet. So much so that if you want to hear the madness of the exhaust, you'll have to roll down the windows. But unlike the Mustang, the M8 needs premium fuel. Yes, 98 octane.
And it is massive. But what really catches my attention about this design is the stance. Long hood, roofline that tears down to that deck, and well, very strong shoulders. Very muscle car, isn't it? Classic muscle car. But at the same time, it's got the modern day sporty touches. Just look at the bumpers or the rear diffuser. So, is BMW's M8 Coupe the mightiest M you can buy in India? Well, for a lot less money, you could get the M5, which does offer you the more traditional M experience since it's a rear-wheel drive, and for a lot less money, you also get 4 doors, so a bit more practicality on that. So the M8 Coupe here is actually for those who want to make a big statement. Its coupe-like design and its muscle car stance is truly head-turning, and along with that, it actually lives up to that GT tag surprisingly well. And along with all of that, it's not compromising on performance. It is astonishingly fast, and yet, despite its size and all-wheel drive system, very much fun to drive. So, the mightiest M? Well, it's a little close to call right now. The temple of M, 4.4 liters of V8 goodness, with an 8-speed automatic transmission and of course a multi-plate clutch for the all-wheel drive system. You want to know specs? I give you specs. Oh! Now looking at this, you'd think that you would end up scraping your nose often or, well, scraping the belly. But this actually manages to clear all our speed breakers quite easily. And if you're worrying about the chin, let me just point this out. This is a rubber flap here. Yes, of course it has a boot. You actually want to see it? Oh. Planning on buying one, are you? Yes, and that's more important than being able to pack in lots of luggage. Just buy lots of soft bags, all right? Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not used to these cars. Plastic, obviously. Plastic, weight saving. Metal, as it should be. The sum of the parts is great, And the parts themselves are also fantastic. Light alloy wheels, 20 inches, and carbon fiber roof. Really thin carbon fiber roof. Why? Obviously, less weight here means your center of gravity goes down. It's a GT, right? Which means it's got a second set of seats, albeit small seats. How good are they? How practical is it? Well, this is set for my height, and that means motorized, slide forward. That's how much space I have on offer on the inside. That's good enough, right? I think I'm not getting in there.
Better.
It's cozy, cocoonish, cozy. Hey! Hey! So this being a BMW, the quality is rich and the details are sharp. But this being a BMW, the design is, well, also, well, very BMW. So somebody spending 2.5 crores for this might feel a little...
Hello. What can I help you with?
Why did you cut? You still
Sorry,
kept rolling.
I didn't quite hear that.
You have something to say about the price tag?
अरे बाबा क्यों
Please
कट
repeat your input or
किया?
say help.
Do you think you could have a better interior design?
This function is currently not available.
The BMW-ness, of course, continues to the complications that arise when you want to set up the drive modes or just change things around. For instance, the gear lever has a button here which is basically to change the gearbox settings. You can go up and down, and then if you really want to play around with these magic buttons, and these are important, M1 and M2, I love using them because you can configure one mode over here, another one over here. This was my full flat out sport mode, and this was of course the take it easy comfort mode. The M menu, and let's say configure M1 for engine. You can choose from 3 different settings: efficient, sport, sport plus. Keep it to sport plus. Sorry. You go to transmission. You have 3 normal drive settings which are automatic, 3 sports settings which are manual, suspension tune which is comfort, sport, sport plus, the steering, comfort or sport, a brake mode, sport and comfort. This is sharp, this is not, this is not, this is sharp. Then you have of course your DSC, and the important thing about the DSC is that if it is off, that's when you can go into 2-wheel drive mode. Oh yeah. Of course, then you can also control the start stop, keep it off. You can have the sound control on or off, which is whether you want it loud or not. And aside from this, there are lots of other settings, and similarly you can also configure for the M2 mode.
There's all your adjustments for heads-up display.
24 पैंतीस
इनमें से कुछ भी नहीं बिका सर।
क्या सेल करेगा जिमी? 20 साल में कभी ऐसा नहीं देखा है। नो कस्टमर्स, नो सेल।
कार देखो गाड़ी पे होम इंस्पेक्शन बुक करो और कार बेचो ऑफिस, घर या कहीं से भी और पाओ बेस्ट प्राइस, क्विक पेमेंट, फ्री आरसी ट्रांसफर एंड डॉक्यूमेंटेशन। आज से तुम यहाँ पे वेटर नहीं, डिलीवरी बॉय भी। अभी जाओ। कार देखो गाड़ी पे होम इंस्पेक्शन बुक करो और बेस्ट प्राइस पे कार बेचो कहीं से भी। गाड़ी फॉरवर्ड तो इंडिया फॉरवर्ड।